especially smaller venue owners couldn't afford to lose their license.
You know, I remember for a birthday, I asked A-Track to host.
Well, I mean, now you're opening up a whole other
I know.
can of worms, which is just incredible.
And I was just like making up my own rules, which the IRS doesn't like.
Hey there, it's me, Roxy Cottontail. You might know me as a DJ, artist, designer, and New York City party promoter, or from my bunny logo. I'm putting all that on the table and writing about the years that transformed music and the New York City scene. I've interviewed 250 friends and colleagues I admire. I ask all and reveal all. Please join me and the tales to rediscover the 90s and the Y2K magical landscape of music, art, technology, and streetwear. This is Roxy's Tales.
You know, it's cool because then when I do my Zoom interviews, I can just throw up a flyer like this one.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
You do?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this was the first thing that I promoted that you were DJing.
It was in the Manhattan Mall.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Right? Yeah.
God, how do you remember that?
I've got a pretty good memory.
Okay, good. Well, tell us who you are.
Happy to be here. My name is Cosmo Baker.
My next interview on Roxy's Tales is Cosmo Baker. A mixtape king and party rockin' legend of a DJ, he's a Philadelphia native, connector and curator of all great things. He's more than likely your favorite DJ's favorite DJ, a comedian and all-around joy of a soul, the dude behind legendary parties The Rub and The Remedy. We go down the rabbit hole of Ghoulliani's cabaret laws, the Hollerboard, and more. What's really dude?
What do you do? What did you do around the time that we worked together?
Predominantly, I was a DJ. I was 1/3 of a collective called The Rub, which was me, DJ Ayers, and DJ 11. But then also I would DJ solo, just kind of on my own trajectory. And I think that we were already established as a group. Yeah, there we are. Questionable hair choices.
I love your hair like this. Like,
I think we were already established as a group, as a crew, when you and I first started working together. Because you and I worked together independently, but then, you know, as the group, you also worked with us. So we started The Rub. I should say The Rub started in 2002, July of 2002. Mm-hmm. And over the course of that first year, from 2002 to 2003, I was a guest. I was still living in Philadelphia at the time, and I would come up and I would do a guest slot at the party. And then I think it was within the first year that I lived there in New York. So that must have been anywhere from 2003 to 2004.
The Rub was January 9th, 2004.
Okay, makes perfect sense.
So do you remember how we met?
I think you and I met in Philly.
Yeah, I would say so too.
I think we met at the Yuki.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think about, if I remember correctly, the first Hollertronics party in New York that you promoted was, I want to say it was somewhere in the Lower East Side.
This was the first Hollertronics that I was like,
yes,
produced.
Yes, yeah. Where was that? On 17 Johnson? That was like way downtown, right?
Downtown, yeah. Okay,
right. Yeah, I was there. I remember vividly the room, and I remember being there. I remember XXL. Wow.
Yeah. This Chris Mack. You know Chris Mack?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
he was like, I don't know, the marketing director. I don't know what he was, but I remember like, I need someone to pay for this to get printed. And so that's why Jay-Z is on the other side, because they paid for the flyer printing.
Makes sense.
So scrappy. I was so scrappy.
Resourceful.
Yes, resourceful, exactly. So you were already an established DJ. You were playing between Philly and New York?
Yeah. I mean, I already had my career kind of, blossoming.
Because of the Remedy, right?
Remedy, and, just all the stuff that I had done in Philadelphia. Also, this was pre like the big travel boom for DJs of the 2000s, right? But I had done some traveling, but, based out of Philadelphia, I lived in New York for about 2 years, from 94 to 96.
Oh.
So that kind of, gave me my entry point there. So once I actually came back to New York in 2000. It was 2000, early 2003. One of the reasons why I moved to New York at the time was because Philadelphia, it's a really big, small city, right? And I had kind of hit a glass ceiling, but a lot of it was also because of the nightlife climate post 9/11. It was coming off of like several different things. You were coming off of the turmoil, which was post-Giuliani administration with the implementation of quality of life, and
they were cracking down on the what is it, I want to call it a burlesque, but it was cabaret law.
Cabaret law, which had gone back. I think that the cabaret laws were instituted in like 1914 or something like that. And we all understand now the draconian mentality that is Ghoulliani, but it was crazy to me because I had my first experience with that in 1995. I was DJing at a place called Den of Thieves. It was my weekly Saturday residency, and I would DJ there every Saturday night for the course of a year and change. I took one weekend off, and my girlfriend at the time and I went on a vacation and came back the week later. And I showed up for my Saturday gig, and I walked in, and my friend Rob, who was the owner of the club at the time, I'm still friends with him, was there, and he gave me this look when I walked in, and he glanced over. We both glanced over at the dance floor, and he had arranged all these sofas that were on the dance floor. I asked Rob, like, what's going on? And that's when he told me all about Giuliani, and they had gotten raided, and they had been given a fine, and that was something that was matriculating and permeating throughout all of nightlife. And it made people really fearful. It made them really scared because especially smaller venue owners couldn't afford to lose their license. This was like, these things were, licenses were like gold. It was how they operated. There were times when, and I'm sure that you probably remember this, there were times when they used to have like light bulbs installed in DJ booths, right? And it would be like a little blue light bulb on the wall or a little red light bulb on the wall. And that would be connected to a light switch at the very front door. So the security and the bouncers, if they saw that the people from licensing and inspections were coming in, they would hit the light switch, and a light bulb would go off in the DJ booth, signifying to the DJ, stop the music or play a slow jam. Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? To kill the dance floor, right? And we operated like that for years, which we're basically operating under this threat and this fear of being culpable for making people dance. It was crazy. I actually think that, do you remember Prince Language? Remember Josh?
Yeah.
Right. I think he actually received a fine, like several $1,000s. So so it was a really, really strange time in New York because we were, that was a culture and a climate that had been running rampant. Pre 9/11, this is pre 9/11. This was happening. This was leading all up into what the environment was like in the 2000s, which is why in this early and mid 2000s, it was actually so freaking inventive. You had that climate, and you also had the rise of like bottle service culture.
Yeah.
Which, was very much the shifting of the balance of power from the experience of nightclubs where people were going out to experience the congregation, to experience the joy and the mirth and celebration. It was very much a place of solace. It was a place of safety for people. And now all of a sudden, because of the capital drive, and they saw how bottles could be sold, and you could take a bottle, which was a bottle of crappy vodka, which was retailed for $22, and they would sell it for, $350. And basically what they were doing was allowing people with financial resource, carte blanche entry into nightlife, which was something that was very special. There was something that, like, the cool kids who were also like the rejects had created this to be like a safe space, right? The creative people who were also tantamount to being like the working class were really at the whim of that. You know, we didn't have any particular position of power, you know, other than, you know, if we were to say like, we're not going to work, and we're not unionized. So, you know, we couldn't really do that. So you had those two things, and then you had 9/11, which was really the bottom dropping out of everything. And that was just like this existential despair. It was out of all that. That's when I saw that New York was kind of going through like this very strange, but very cool and exciting metamorphosis. And it was also matching what was happening in Philadelphia at the time, with like the stuff that Mike and Wes were doing with Holotronics, which was like an extension of what a lot of the guys were doing at like space at 700 Club, which was like another party that I DJ'd at, club that I DJ'd at, and like at the Remedy with me and Rich Medina, you know, which was kind of like everything but the kitchen sink, throw it all at the wall and like, see what sticks, you know, musically. And then out of that, you were able to kind of attract this really, really broad spectrum of different types of people who were, you know, from many different walks of life, but all very much of the same mind. To me, so much of it was a direct reaction to that climate, which was, I want to say, pretty much localized in Manhattan.
Yeah.
At this point, you know, there wasn't really too many things that were happening in Brooklyn proper. Yeah. You know, the rub obviously was in Park Slope, you know, and Park Slope was, you know, at that point, yeah, you still had $5 million brownstones, but, you know, you had guys who were selling crack on the floor. You know, you got to understand, you know, especially as the decade went on, you know, and more things that were happening in Brooklyn, you really didn't have to leave Brooklyn,
yeah,
to experience nightlife. But very early in the decade, in the early 2000s, so there wasn't really much there.
Yeah.
And
I know, well, going to Pratt, you know, you couldn't even get a cab to take you to Brooklyn sometimes.
Right, exactly.
I was there from 97 to 2001 at school. I feel like, you know, Vice was really popping off at that time too. And they were doing all these little, I mean, a variety of different events too, but it wasn't like localized to like, you're going here every Friday.
Yeah. You know, Vice definitely had it stranglehold on Brooklyn identity, I should say, you know, for quite a while. But even in the very beginning of that time period, you know, Williamsburg, that we all know now as Williamsburg, you know, which is, you know, may as well be like, you know, I want to say like, you know, Minnesota, you know what I'm saying? Or like Mall of America. It was like still really grimy. And, you know, there was something about that was really attractive to me. And I know to a lot of people, because again, talking about the climate that was in Manhattan, so much of what it is that we wanted to do, and I'm speaking now, kind of framing this in the creation of the Rub, you know, so much of what it is that we wanted to do was to kind of create a foil, to create something new that was the antithesis of the experience of going out to nightlife in Manhattan, which was a hassle because you have to run through the gamut of all the different criteria of how one was going to be perceived for entry process, right? You know, right? What are you gonna wear? You know, like how are you going to, you know, how are you gonna go through the protocol of all that stuff, which is, you know, by and large standard procedure now, but you know, there was a whole thing that we wanted to do, just kind of democratize nightlife. You know, anybody and everybody could get in, just come, you know, looking like a, you know, I mean, we don't want scrubs, but you know, you can come in, you know, looking like a scrub and whatnot, but that kind of added to the rawness, right?
Yeah,
you know?
Of course.
You did such a great job though. I mean, across the board, you know, with everything that you did, you know, in the sense of kind of, you know, I mean, you galvanized the community, you know, let's be honest about it. You really did. Yeah.
Well, I had a lot of amazing talent to help me get there. And this was one of my first weeklies. I can't remember what came first, if this was Damaged Goods at 11 with Aaron and I curating this together. This was a Friday weekly, but I think we had already started doing Mondays at Sway, but they wouldn't let me have every Monday. So I was like, first started doing once a month at Sway with Girl on Girl, my all female. And I remember you introduced me to Abby Klein.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And she became like a regular on that party. And then, once I started doing numbers, I was like, okay, let me get every other week. And so then I started programming every other week. And then eventually they're like, just take it.
Yeah.
So it was Retail Mafia Monday for about like a year and a half or maybe even 2 years. And then it became my baby.
Yeah.
And I have a ton of flyers.
Oh, I remember that one too. Wow.
This is the early, which one is this? It's backwards for me. Hold on.
This is Monday, the 12th of November. Svetka Vodka, me 11, and Iron Line. By Jules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This was an early one too. I think, I can't remember. I don't have the year on here, but.
Oh gosh, I remember seeing that one too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like probably like 05, you and Max. It's funny because I was booking what?
That's with Max. I didn't see because damn.
Yeah, I was booking Max and Gravy independently at Sway already.
Right.
And then they went on to do Rice and Peas, which became an animal.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where were they doing that eventually? They moved that to, was it Webster Hall?
I think so, after we ended Sway.
I know they were doing it, said eventually got to a point where they were doing it at some huge place. Maybe it was like Webster Hall. Yeah. Yeah.
But this is an early one too.
Oh, that's good. Damn, man. That's great.
Sure shot. And I like the whole, Red Stripe essentially like gave me like, I don't even know how much beer, I even found like all these old emails and documents. Like I would have to send Red Stripe my request basically for like all my events. So they would sponsor Mondays, they would sponsor Fridays. And then whoever else contacted me would be like, I need to get Red Stripe.
Yeah.
And so it's just hilarious because there's so many cases of Red Stripe as I like go through my files. It's just nuts. Here's you spinning its way. There's so much.
Wow, with my old laptop again on my level sticker. That's wild. Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many.
I mean, I'm going to say probably you booked me in New York. By and large, you booked me in New York way beyond anybody else.
You think so?
Way beyond. Way beyond. If it wasn't just like me getting a gig off of the strength of being Cosmo or the Rub or whatever, it was like, it was like somebody who had a personal relationship. It was you, by far. By far.
But then there was also a Friday night that Bill Spector and I did. So I hired you to host it. Hosted by Cosmo Baker.
That's right. That's right. And this, that's right.
We didn't put the name of the place on the flyer because I hated the owner. It was called Mission.
Mission. That's right.
Yeah. But you DJ'd this for us too.
I do remember hosting though. And A-Track played, right?
Yeah. That was the one. I remember for a birthday, I asked A-Track to host. And he said, what does that mean? I was like, you just have to like tell some friends, look cute, and show up. I don't know if you were on the mic though. I can't remember.
If I remember correctly, I definitely was on the mic for some point. I mean, knowing myself, you put a microphone in, and maybe a beer in my hand. Yeah, I'm gonna get on the mic.
Yeah.
Sway to me was really, really special because of the fact that, again, it felt like the super secret honeycomb hideout for all the homies. And as a DJ, it was so easy for me to go there and to play new shit, to play stuff which I know might not necessarily be like, the super big hit or something that was popping. Obviously, you'd want to play that, but like you could test new shit out, right? And I remember Alain was out there, A-Track was out there on the dance floor, and he was just like this, right? And then drop the beat, right? And it just, you smashed, right? And to me, that was like kind of one of the great things about the Monday night at Sway is that like you felt as if though you were playing specifically for your close homies. And, again, like it just was, it was the clubhouse for the cool kids, the real cool kids.
Hell yeah. Okay, let me ask you about Soul Strut, Split, Hollerboard, Anti-Board. Were you on any of these boards? I know the answer, but. Yes,
I was on a bunch of them. I was on Anti-Board.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe I'd heard of you from Antiboard, right?
I don't know what my username was then. It was either, I don't know when JLo420, because that was like my.
Yeah.
I
JLo 420. Massive respect. That was so good. So fucking good. Well, I mean, now you're opening up a whole other
I know
can of worms, which is just incredible because we had the internet on lock. Yes, I was on Antiboard. Yes, I was on Soulstrut, crucial.org.
Yeah, Crucial. Was that before Soulstrut or was that different?
I think I think maybe coincided with it. All that stuff kind of gave way to Hollerboard. And once Hollerboard was up and running, then everything caught on fire because it became the digital amalgamation of everything that we were doing in real life, right? And then the digital footprint of that started to affect real life as well, because it was out of that we created these communities that would allow friendships, and it would allow people to tour, and do gig trading. And next thing you know, like we're traveling the globe because our people are getting to know us online. JLo 420 and Dude Von Duderson, I think Dude Von Duderson was my main Hollerboard name, right? Yeah. I had the Tom of Finland.
Oh yes, I love Tom of Finland. I forgot about that. With your avatar. Yeah,
my avatar, which would be like the guy in leather with the huge cock, like which was the whole thing. Was like, I think that that I'm a pretty like regular normal guy, and like I'm a nice guy in real life, but like on the internet, like I was so into like being intimidating, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, so was I. I mean, it's like your larger than life version of yourself.
Right. And also very much like a very protective of like my community, and like this is my community, even though our community was like Monday Night Sway, that people would hang out there, or people would hang out at the Rub, right? But those people would also be online. So it would be very much like, when a newbie would come around, be like, oh, okay, you have to kind of pass through the gatekeepers that would be, the illustrious JLo 420 and, and Dude Von Duderson and other cranky old people like Pusher Mania.
Here's another one too. This was when I was writing for Misbehave. And
I remember that.
Yeah.
That was Love was off of 8th Street, right?
Yeah, I just saw that they're like tore it down.
Right. I remember that being a really fun party too.
Wow.
And JD Sampson and me, okay, especially with the way that there was that duality of like what was happening in real life and what was happening on the internet, and the way that those would blend, right? Yeah. I'll think about like how you very much were at the forefront of being somebody in New York nightlife who would never be afraid of taking a chance and booking something that was relatively new, which may be bubbling in like a small section of the country somewhere, right? But you knew it was going to bubble, and you would say, okay, well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to present this on a larger stage here in New York. I'm going to take the chance, and it would pop, it would go. There's so much, I'm just going to say like off the top of my head, like right before the Texas rap explosion happened, right? Like you were, boom, you were like, all right, cool, let me
due to Pusher Mania.
Yeah, let me like book this guy Rapid Rick right here. You know what I'm saying? I think Rapid Rick played Sway, right? Yeah. And then it would be like, holy shit. Next thing you know, like these records are huge on the radio, right? Same thing with like, hyphy stuff. You'd be like, all right, I'm gonna, do this. So like your instincts for being able to narrow in and hone in on like, okay, this is a really dope regional sound, which is something that might not necessarily get run or get play in New York. I'm going to take it and I'm going to take it and present it in an authentic manner with perhaps a DJ or an artist that actually is from that community, not like a watered down, version of like a New York guy trying to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like it was kind of crucial because, there were all the gatekeepers in New York nightlife, and a lot of the DJs would be like, the same guys over and over again. It would just be the same, everything New York centric perspective, so, absolutely it was, you were, yeah.
Well, I maxed out a few credit cards doing that.
Yeah. I'm sure.
And I also got audited.
For the culture. It was for the culture.
And I got audited, and they were like, you're booking all of this travel, like this is a hobby for people, and you're like claiming it as an expense. And I was like, well, it is an expense, but I wasn't like a legitimate business. And so it taught me, really getting audited taught me, oh, I got to become an LLC and, take all these things. And I was just like making up my own rules, which the IRS doesn't like. I booked like one of Chromeo's first shows in 2003.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
And at Soundcheck, I met Elaine. And then, he and Dave would start coming to Sway and other things that I was doing. And he basically was like, I want to play one of your parties. And I was like, well, one, I can't afford you. I actually just saw you open for Usher with Kanye West like last week at MSB. I can't afford you for one. And like two, like, I don't know if like people will understand what you're doing because I was not aware of what like turntablism really was, like the actual, until I like, started researching like who he was. And I was like, but fuck it, like, let's put you on there. And he said that Sway, like playing at Sway, and even he played at Mission for that party with Bill and I, gave him like such an opportunity to cross so many different genres and experiment with music that he probably would not have had.
There's that saying that a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the world and a giant wave crashes because of the effect, right? So like you think about, the way that pop music and pop culture is today, right? And you can very easily kind of draw a correlating line back to a whole series of smaller events, right? And if you think about, and specifically in the case of this, you think about, A-Track listening to all the stuff that, the DJs within the small community of the Hollerboard and Sway and the Rub were doing, and, playing Daft Punk with, Coolie dance rhythm and, and mashing up this and that, right? And then a lot of those elements were then eventually introduced to like Kanye West, who started incorporating it into his music and his sound, which then, had a massive impact and shift just on music in general. The big changes always start in really, really small pockets.
I would like to like do some type of like flow chart where we like pinpoint all of these things.
Yeah. I mean, again, like it's a very real thing. I mean, by no means am I saying that like everything important in culture, in musical culture started by us.
Well, of course, I was like a little punk, and I grew up in DC thinking that punk rock was the end all be all. And then when I moved to New York and like really dug my heels into hip hop, and then also it had these punk rock roots, and I was like, man, like, and meeting Justine too was like pivotal for me, because I was like, man, I'm watching this girl do this, but like I can do this and in another way.
Yeah, I mean, she was doing it and she was killing it, and then you came on, you killed it, and I think that you said something right there which is pretty important, that you grew up in the DC area, right? And you had a particular punk rock ethos, right? That never went away, in my opinion, right? Because everything that you've always done really kind of stayed really truly rooted in the world of DIY.
I always was so concerned about like bridging the line between like selling out.
Mm-hmm.
I was like always like, I don't want to be a sellout. Like I just was like, that's not the way for me. But I did accept brand money because you have to eat.
Yeah. I think I think all of us learned to walk that line. That wasn't. I'm very much of the same mind state of you. the whole, DIY, keep, fuck the man type shit. Obviously, how it is that I am, but we were able to navigate through it and figure out ways in which we could, keep our, ethical integrity intact, because we knew what we were doing was important and was for the greater good,
Definitely.
And going back to I was just talking about in terms of like impact, right? That's one of the reasons why so many brands try to attach themselves and did attach themselves to you, to stuff that we were doing, because they think that even if they didn't understand what it is that we were doing, as a community, I think that they understood that it was important.
So here's one. This is the crowd, and then that's you playing the cowbell. I don't know if you were DJing or who was DJing.
I'm trying to remember who was DJing.
Was this that night? Who's behind you?
That is Ayers. That was not that.
I don't know what this was.
So if you go back to that, so that was.
This was Miami.
It was in Miami.
I think this was Mad Decent, right?
Mad Decent. I'm looking and I see, is that Maggie there, right?
Yep. Black Star.
Black Star. I see Woody.
Night performed. Spank Rock performed.
Spank Rock performed. Did Diplo play?
I don't know.
Somebody played. I remember Mark Ronson being there.
Yes.
And I remember being there, and this was WMC, right? This is definitely WMC. And I remember Mark just like he was wearing like this blue velour suit.
Yeah, I have a photo of he and I from this night.
I don't remember. I think he was wearing it without a shirt underneath, right?
But also like it was like 90 degrees.
It was like 90 degrees. Yeah, it was hot as fuck. Yep, that's the suit. I remember that day vividly.
I do too. More cowbell.
Yeah.
More
have cowbell will travel. That's for sure.
But I don't know who's spinning. I mean, I'm sure I could go through the folder of, these photos, and I'm organizing everything chronologically.
Okay.
The photos and everything as well. So
when was this? This was like 2006, 2007, maybe?
2007.
Okay. All right. Because I remember that. I think the last time I went to WMC was like 2011, I think.
Here's a little my Philly Sean. This is,
oh wow!
I don't even know how old we are. We're like babies. I mean, I can tell by my face I'm a baby and I'm sweaty.
Babies.
We're children. In Nightlife years, we're practically like newborns. I mean,
yeah, I know. These photos are so freaking amazing.
But yeah, there's some good quality stuff in here.
Oh, that's great. Is that at Sway too?
I think so.
Oops. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh no, I feel like this
Morty in the back?
Yeah, Morsi. I don't know. It's hard to say. Is there a balloon? Is that a balloon? Yeah, it's probably Sway.
Okay.
Yeah, some balloons. I would always get balloons for birthdays and stuff.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much.
It is. Thank you, Cosmo Baker. You're the best. So good to see you.
Dude, I gotta take this guy out.
Okay. Have a great day.
Thank you, Rox. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Thanks for hopping by. That's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and stalk. Bounce, little kitty.